It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, Anson, yes! Caught! Touchdown! Did he get it?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Appreciate you tuning in, joining us here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, 1069thefan.com, and streaming on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. And invite you to, not just tune in, but participate. Chime in. We want to hear from you on the Full Court Press text line. Agree, disagree, give us a different opinion.
You will be graded on your participation. You must send in at least one response to receive a full grade. Must be at least 2 paragraphs introducing yourself.
In number 2 pencil.
And number 2 pencil. Well, I was thinking of all the... You go to college these days and you have these like online discussions and you have to, respond so many times in this discussion page. And like then whenever you do a discussion, you have to like be very thorough, like say, I like this response, or I agree because of this. And then like also cite something, because if you only give your opinion, then it's meaningless. You have to back it up by something else. And so it's just everyone's saying, oh, I like your comment about how I like grapes. Here's a study about how grapes are good for you. That's what it basically turns into, because it's just kind of the laziest form of getting college students to participate, and nobody learns anything.
Yeah, I mean, what are we really? What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's kind of dumb, and it obviously got worse during the pandemic. But at least then it made sense. But I was doing that kind of stuff before the pandemic even happened, and it didn't make sense then. Because like we can just do this in person.
Yeah, we'll talk more than just that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're not gonna go through my rants about how different things in college may or may not have worked for me.
One thing we want to get into is interesting thing put together by Chris Murray. He writes for Nevada Sportsnet following the Nevada Wolfpack, which, by the way, front and center on their website, they've got a former Utah State Aggie headed to Nevada.
Oh, really?
Herschel Turner Jr. is going to be committing to Nevada.
There you go.
Which seems like an odd choice.
Where was he originally from? I thought he was from Texas. Or I just assume every running back that goes to Utah State is from Texas. But I'm pretty sure he was from further east than Utah. But, I mean, you had Josh Aduje, who made the full, he's from England, but he made the full cross-country trek going from coastal Carolina to Utah State and then to the West Coast to San Jose State.
Got to go coast to coast.
Sometimes you get further and further away from where you're at.
Got to work the edges. But Chris has put together something that's kind of interesting, looking at what will football look like post realignment between the Mountain West and the Pac-12, as far as how strong will each conference be. And he's looking at a couple different metrics, primarily Sagarin rankings, but looking at how do different conferences stack up against each other. And what will the new conference landscape look like after July 1st, 2026?
Yeah, it's interesting to look at because the whole point of the Pac-12 rebuilding was to basically make itself that fringe Power 5, like trying to retain some kind of Power 5 semblance. I mean, to truly believe that, you kind of have to be delusional, but kind of creating at least for them to truly be a Power 5, for them to be like fringe Power 5, that I think was kind of doable. And I think that was the realistic goal. I don't think the people in the back rooms are really delusional about being a true power conference team, but they realize we can become that kind of fringe. We can become the next best.
The best of the rest.
Yeah, the best of the rest. I know the American, they were trying to make the whole P6 thing happen because they were trying to become that. Of course, it's kind of fallen apart for them after they lost some key pieces. But the Pac-12 is trying to take on that mantle, trying to shave off the top of all. It's why they're going after Memphis and Tulane and South Florida. It's why they got Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, Utah State, and all the rest. And looking at these rankings, at least for football, you can see that it's kind of maybe going to succeed, but I don't think to the level that they were hoping. And it's why the Pac-12's job, I mean, for one, it's unfinished because they only have 7 full-time member institutions. But it's also unfinished because when you look at football, they're not really definitively the best of the non-P4 conferences. They are by this metric, I think. And down the line, I think they're, after 2026, they'll project to be the best. But the lead over the rest of the conferences, like the American, the Sun Belt, the Mountain West, it's not as wide as you would hope it would be. You're closer to the American and the Sun Belt than you are to the ACC, which is kind of the weakest of the Power Five. So it's kind of interesting to look at this and see a metric at least kind of measuring like how close are you to the G5 and how close are you to I guess it's the G6 now essentially, the G6 versus the P4. And it's interesting to kind of look at this and see where exactly this one metric has the Pac-12.
Yeah, so for comparison numbers, for those who may be trying to keep track, 2024 conference rankings, according to Sagarin, SEC was number 1 at 82.07. I mean, very good football.
Yeah,
very strong metrics.
They're the best there.
They're the big dog.
At least top to bottom.
But the gap between them and the Big Ten isn't as wide, and others isn't as wide as perhaps it's been in the past. Big Ten was at 78.32. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the Pac-12 came in at 5th, right behind the ACC as the best non-power conference, but that was at 65.7. So a bit of a gap from 82 and 78. Mountain West was 62.85. So there is a gap there between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Yeah, Pac-12 coming in at number 5, Mountain West at number 8.
Yeah, and it's a gap somewhat comparable to the gap between the SEC and the Big Ten, or between like the Big 12 and the ACC. The Big 12 and the ACC, that gap is a bit larger. So, yeah, you are seeing a gap, and the Pac-12 does have that advantage. They have, Boise State really helps, the Oregon State and Washington State being solid programs. And if Utah State and Fresno State get closer to the better end of what they've been the last 10, 20 years, then it's going to be even better. I think that gap would show up. But right now, what you're seeing from the programs, what you're seeing, because Utah State, Fresno State, and San Diego State are all kind of down right now. San Diego State, Utah State more so than Fresno, because Fresno still went to a bowl. They were still at least decent this year. But in Colorado State, they're down as well. I can't even remember the last time Colorado State was good, or at least really good.
Really good? It's been a long
They've just kind of
time.
been mediocre or bad most of the time.
Yeah.
But you've got these programs that are down, and they need to step up. Otherwise, as a football conference, and it's why the Mountain West as a whole has been down, is because San Diego State and Fresno State and Utah State have all not been as good. Boise State basically carried the Mountain West this year because they were a playoff team, and nobody else was really that good. So if all those programs step up, I think that gap will show up. But right now, there's none. I think the hope of the Pac-12 is that you bring in these schools that all have the highest potential, and that hopefully they'll all reach that potential, especially if you inject a big old media deal in there. Like if they get what they're wanting in a media deal, that gap could show up. But it's an if, and that's kind of the problem, is it's an if, and you're kind of hoping that gap develops once you throw money at these programs that have a bit of a higher potential in football.
Yeah, so what Chris has done is he's reshuffled the deck according to the 2024 rankings that we just, the conference, the season's done, and using those rankings, and he used that because that's the most recent data available, but you reshuffle the deck to put schools in their new conferences, because it's not just affecting the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Remember, the MAC, Conference USA, they're going to be affected a little bit by some movement as well. But then if you re-average what those total those rankings up again, your Power Four, they don't change. There's no change with those schools or those conferences. But the Pac-12, according to its new creation, actually drops down, but just narrow, 0.45 points. The Mountain West, however, drops 1.48 spots or points. The MAC drops 1.62, and Conference USA drops slightly as well, but very minimal. But nobody really moved up. Everybody, with all this changing and moving around, the point here really is that does anybody really even get that much better after 2026?
Yeah, and that's where, you get some people that say the Pac-12 and Mountain West should emerge. I've been in that crowd. I to be honest, I've kind of backed off of that, at least since Gonzaga joined the Pac-12. I don't know if that was necessarily the turning point, but I've kind of backed off of that stance that I've had where I ultimately feel like it's going to be better, at least for Utah State, to have joined the Pac-12 as is instead of having the two conferences merge. But that goes back to what I say with potential. Because the Mountain West, what's their potential? To basically be about as good as the Sun Belt. What's the potential of the Pac-12? Well, their potential to be borderline as good as the ACC with Boise State, and if Oregon State and Washington State, and if everyone is able to kind of lift each other up, and if they get that good media deal, again, it's the Pac-12 took all of the of the Mountain West teams that have the best potential in football. They basically took all of them. Utah State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Boise State, San Diego State. Those are all the teams that have, for the most part, been good at football for the last 10, 15 plus years. And so right now, in what Chris Murray's done is kind of based off of this year. Well, this year, San Diego State wasn't good. Utah State wasn't good. Colorado State was mediocre. Fresno State was mediocre.
Yeah.
Boise State was obviously elite. If all those programs that were mediocre or bad get back to their potential, then they're not going to be, slightly down from this year. They're going to be much better. And so that's something that doesn't quite come across in these rankings. What it shows right now is like what the conferences would look like right now, which as of now, the way they're currently constituted, and if you base it off last year, there's really nothing between the Pac-12 or the AAC or the Sun Belt, and they're only a little bit better than the Mountain West as a whole. But I think the biggest key of all this is the potential that the Pac-12 will have in football. And then on the basketball side, they're already pretty dang good anyway. You look at all the teams. Basically, Fresno State's about the only newcomer that isn't pulling their weight for what would be the new Pac-12 in basketball. So I think football definitely not looking good for the Pac-12 as the teams are currently constituted. But if you can inject that good media deal, and if you give these programs time to rebuild, San Diego State got a new head coach trying to figure things out. Fresno State working with a new head coach trying to figure things out. Colorado State might have a new head coach pretty soon. I don't know. We'll figure things out. And obviously Utah State with a new head coach. These are all programs that are rebuilding, but should be able to rebuild. Again, the solution to everything in college football tends to be money.
Yeah.
It may not solve it immediately, but it will eventually solve the problem. And so that's why I keep going back to that. That's why the media deal is the most important factor with the Pac-12's future. If that is good, the future of the Pac-12 is great.
It will help take care of itself.
Yeah, it'll bring in at least one new member to bolster. Like if you bring in a Memphis, that raises football up, and obviously raises basketball up as well. It paves the way for the rebuilding programs to rebuild even better. Going into the revenue sharing era, inject cash, you get more players. So that's the key, I think, here.
Yeah, and he also looks at the Sagarin rankings and their detail. It goes down the line to include FCS schools, and where the Mountain West is elevating some FCS schools into their future ranks. It can take that into account, but also there are some FCS schools that rank much higher than FBS schools. And it kind of notes that the Mountain West did not include some of these schools that really could have helped bolster their football strength. They chose to go with these schools instead. So maybe slightly questioning, did the Mountain West really make the best moves when they were expanding their conference and reaching down to the FCS ranks a little bit?
Yeah. Like they obviously didn't go to any FCS programs. So they went with, UTEP and,
UC Davis.
Well, they didn't add the
not added as a football.
Yeah, they didn't add their
school.
FCS football program. I mean, they may very well could. Of course, isn't UC Davis's football program decent? Or I thought I heard something like that.
Could be.
I couldn't remember. I didn't look it up at the time.
But like South Dakota State, they're at 37 in the Sagarin, but UTEP is 166. So give you a bit of a difference in quality of what could have been or what they decided to go instead.
Yeah, it just seems that, outside of, I think Conference USA is adding some FCS. Maybe the MAC will look to that. But it seems that when you're looking at the Mountain West, the AAC, the American, or the Pac-12, none of them really look to add FCS. It seems like they feel like they're above that for some reason. Like the Sun Belt added an FCS program. They added James Madison. I think they've added others. But I don't know. It just seems like they feel like they're above, going after FCS teams. And mind you, adding FCS teams is getting more expensive. So there's basically roadblocks being put in place to keep FCS teams, because there's been a pretty steady stream. We've gone from like the 100 teens to 134, 100. It keeps growing. I think we're going to be up to like 134, 136. We've grown by 15, 20 FBS schools in the last 10 years. And I don't feel like there's been as much growth in previous years. Although maybe I should double check that before making sweeping statements.
Well, and certainly this is a discussion that is most primarily focused on football.
Yeah.
And football is the biggest driver. But when you look at basketball, this is a completely different discussion. There is no question the Pac will be a much stronger basketball league than the Mountain West.
Yeah, it's not even a question. Like the Mountain West will be like, I think the Mountain West is actually going to be in a pretty rough shape in football to some degree. Air Force and UNLV are going to have to carry them, and those programs are kind of iffy as far as their ability to be great on a national. Air Force works really well at the G5 level. But then when you flip to basketball, they're going to have some strong teams, Nevada, New Mexico, UNLV, but like they pale in comparison to what Utah State and San Diego State and Colorado State and Gonzaga. You add all that, it really is night and day. Like the Pac-12 in basketball will be closer to the power conferences than they will be to the mid-majors. You will almost be able to call them a power conference. There's some who probably will call them a power conference. I don't know if I'd go that far, but you're at least not absolutely insane for saying that. In football, the Pac-12 was basically a G6 team. And they're not really that close to power conference. But in basketball, it's a completely different story.
Yeah. Looking at the schools leaving the Mountain West, their average net ranking is 52. And the schools that the Mountain West is that they're bringing in to replace them, their average net ranking, 155.
Yeah, it's
big difference.
Like the best is Grand Canyon the best in basketball among those?
That's a good question. I will see if I can find that out.
Yeah, because they're a solid basketball program, but they're one that's been in a one-bid league because they've been in the WAC. And I think they've been to a tournament in the last 5 or 6 years. I think they've had a year where they managed to make it.
I think last year.
Was it last year? So, like it's decent, but again, like in basketball, the Mountain West is essentially becoming kind of the old WAC. That's basically what they're becoming. Where it's probably going to go down to a one-bid league, and there'll be some good teams. There'll be some good mid-major programs. Again, UNLV got a storied history. New Mexico got an iconic arena. Nevada, a very good program in and of itself, but it's just not going to compare to what the Pac-12 is going to have.
Grand Canyon currently sitting at 102 in the net. The highest of those four are Grand Canyon, UC Davis, Hawaii, and UTEP.
Yeah, UTEP. Are they like way down?
UTEP's
Or are they not bad?
Too bad. They are sitting at 119.
Are they going to introduce them as a program at the national championship? Is that how they're going to introduce them?
I'm sure they will. Proud history.
Yeah, back in the 1950s.
National championships.
I mean, it's worth talking about. It's something, and it's part of history, but it is part of history, not part of relevance today.
Yeah. Hawaii, by the way, 184, UC Davis, 214.
Yeah, so it just doesn't compare to what the Pac-12 will be.
No. So, yeah, I know there's been discussion about, what, who's making the better moves with conference realignment and expansion. But, yes, 435-339-0321. If you want to chime in, we'll get to your texts on the other side of this timeout here on the Full Court Press.
It's cold outside, but you can keep warm inside with a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace. Count on a furnace from York because it's backed by the strongest warranties available. It's just another way we install confidence. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer, at 752-7272. Online at advancedheating-ac.com. York, install confidence.
We're not comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Alpine Home Medical has been around for over 25 years. Can you believe that? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent. What keeps us coming to work every day? We're passionate about caring for you. From home and bathroom safety to transportation, mobility, recovery, oxygen, sleep, and more, come into any of our 10 locations today and let us take care of you.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Did you know Daryl's technicians are factory authorized and trained to do your warranty work? This is Jay with Daryl's. Our repairmen have access to the largest parts department in northern Utah. That means we often get repair done the first visit. Schedule your appliance repair today to lock in your no-risk service. If you want new instead, you can apply your trip charge to an appliance purchase. See store for details. Daryl's west on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. 435-339-0321 for those of you who want to text into the program. And a couple of texts coming through. 9315 is the Full Court Press midterms today.
I sent that in when we were talking about grading and discussions. And whatnot.
We did hand out some midterm grades for Utah State before the San Jose game.
Yeah, we did. Seemed to live up to that. I don't know. What grades would you give us? You have a grade for me and Eric.
Yeah, the show, how we're doing, topics.
5452 saying, "Oh no, another EMP attack at the radio ranch." Did something? Anybody else? We didn't.
Yeah,
notice
I'm not
anything?
aware of anything that while we've been on the air, but if it's not sounding right, let us know.
We noticed when it happened Tuesday because I was in the middle of the audio we were playing with. Like was it Coach Calhoun?
Oh yeah, right in the middle of the playback.
But we didn't notice anything here, and we listened to it over the stream and what's going over the air. We didn't hear anything. So
yeah, if you're if we don't sound right, let us know.
Do the roll call.
Yeah. Then 8968. I texted in yesterday, but after the show, I realized that I had texted into the wrong show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This says, I really believe that UNLV will be a PAC member before too long.
Yeah, I've said that so many times. I probably sound like I'm a broken record when I do that, where I just, the Mountain West bought their loyalty because UNLV was at least reportedly in debt. Everyone said that. I've never heard that from like an official source, but everyone just says UNLV is like $20 million in debt. Mountain West offered them about that much money to stick around, and that bought their loyalty. But I just don't like it. And they signed the grant of rights, whatever it's called. and that keeps them there for like 5 years or something like that. But the second they get a chance to leave, they're going to do it. And especially once you get 5 years in the Mountain West, you're going to realize that that gap is going to be there. You know, it's Pac-12, again, going back to the media deal, the all-important media deal. I keep saying it way too much, but there's a reason that I say it so much. But if you see this gap between what the Pac-12 is getting with the media deal versus what the Mountain West, there's going to be a gap there, and it's going to be a very noticeable one. And the UNLV is going to see that, where they've been on at least trying to be on an upward trajectory with their programs, their basketball programs trying to get back on its feet, struggling to do so, but it's kind of working at times. Their football program has obviously taken massive steps forward, akin to what Utah State did back in circa 2011. So, but now that's taken a hit because they're getting left behind. They kind of chose that path, but they're getting left behind in a lesser conference. And if they get stuck there and suddenly they're stagnating, then they're going to want to move up. They might be the big fish in the small pond, but they're going to realize that they're stagnating relative to the rest of, the FBS or Division I in basketball. And they're going to want to move beyond that. So that's why I just say, like, the UNLV to the Pac-12 is just a countdown counter.
Yeah, it'll probably eventually happen. But the Pac-12 has to find somebody else before them. They can't sit back and wait for them to wise up to their short-sighted decision to stay in the Mountain West. They've got to go find at least one other football playing school by next summer. By 5452, there were several seconds of static noise while you were talking. Sounds good now.
That's good.
Thank you for that heads up.
That's what we want.
We don't want the static. Sometimes maybe I sound like static. Maybe I just sound like white noise to you. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Let's not do that.
No, that doesn't make for good radio.
No. Let's also, we've had a little bit of a break in doing this. There's been holidays. Teams aren't playing as regularly.
I got sick.
Jason got a little sidetracked.
Got sidetracked just trying to stay alive.
Stuck in his bed. Yeah. But, we do try to have and highlight a high school player of the week each week. And thanks to our friends at Center Street Grill and Blue Sky Restoration, we're able to do that. And who are our nominees, or not nominees, our award winners this week?
Familiar faces. Both of these players have won the award before. In fact, one of them won it, I can't say last week because it's been a few weeks, won it the last time that we awarded that, and that is Skyview girls basketball forward Claire Fisher. She won last time out about mid-December or late December when we last did this. But then another familiar face winning this award for the third time this year is Green Canyon basketball wing Jude Haig, who, and again, both these players had fantastic weeks. Claire Fisher leading Skyview to a pair of wins over the New Year's weekend. She had 11.7 rebounds, 3 blocks against Syracuse. Mind you, they won games against like 5 and 6A teams. 11.7 rebounds, 3 blocks against Syracuse. Although the more impressive effort was the 19 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and 7 blocks against Farmington.
Wow.
So very dominant on the boards, in the paint, scoring. Overall, Claire Fisher having, again, a spectacular year, dominating for Skyview. And then Jude Haig, he's been a dominant scorer this week, but he put up, there was only one game for Green Canyon last week. They beat Skyview in boys basketball. He scored 25 points. He had 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal in that winning effort. So again, some very good performances from these players.
Speaking of high school sports, there was a barn burner of a game last night in Millville.
Yeah, it was
in Green Canyon and Ridgeline.
Yeah, it's Jim. I couldn't mention like Green Canyon being undefeated because they're not anymore because of what happened
anymore.
Because of what happened yesterday. But that win had kept them undefeated. It was like their 13th or 14th straight win for Green Canyon. Ended, but of course Ridgeline, pretty good game for them.
Yeah. If you have the opportunity, go back and watch the replay of that game on Cache Valley Daily. It was a great back and forth contest. But again, we appreciate Blue Sky Restoration where they do water and storm damage repair, smoke and fire repair, even mold remediation at gobluesky.com, and also Center Street Grill, where they've got a full menu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the familiar corner of Center and Main in Logan. They help us sponsor and provide opportunities for these players of the week. With that, we'll take another quick timeout here on the Full Court Press. When we come back, Utah Hockey Club, they're at their near halfway point, and we've had some interesting games where they look super connected and well together, and other games where not quite so much. And they're competitive in some, and they get blown out in some others. But they're kind of a young team, and so that is prone to happen. But what's the Utah Hockey Club looking like when they're at their halfway point? We've been doing a lot of midterms here recently on the Full Court Press.
Time for another midterm.
Why not include the Hockey Club? We'll discuss them next on the Full Court Press.
Happy New Year. You survived the holidays. This is Jarek at Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Did you meet the family during the holidays? How was that? Is it time to go engagement ring shopping? Valentine's Day is coming, but why wait? Do it now. Bring her in and view our collection of over 3,000 rings. With many of them being our own custom designs, I know we will find the perfect one. At Jarek's Fine Jewelry, we make it special. So come make it Jarek.
Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special. Make it Jarek's.
A mouth-watering Cafe Sabor burrito, smothered in cheese and fresh guacamole with endless chips and salsa, plus your favorite drink, all for just $7.95. It's Locals Day at Cafe Sabor. Every Thursday, the drinks are bottomless, the chips and salsa are endless, and the burritos are amazing, all for just $7.95. There's nothing better. It's Cafe Sabor's way of saying thanks, Cache Valley. Don't miss Locals Day every Thursday at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station, 6th West and Center in Logan.
Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. 435-339-0321. 9315 texting in. You guys sound like a top NBA performer with all the reasons why you can't play in tonight's game, a.k.a. giving away your high school award sports. I'm not sure I follow.
Yeah,
I don't understand what that means.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Utah Hockey Club, they were in action last night taking on the Panthers, Florida Panthers, very strong program. And Hockey Club played them pretty tight. After the end of 2, it was the Panthers 1, Utah 0. Fairly early on, well, a certain stretch in the third period, Utah scores to even things up, and it looks like okay, they're going to make this interesting. Game being played in Salt Lake, kind of an exciting opponent, but before you know it, Panthers win the game 4-1. Now, some of those were empty netters late, and they were trying to get more guys on the ice to force the advantage, but didn't work their way, and they end up losing another one by a pretty healthy margin.
Yeah, the last 2 goals were empty net because Hockey Club was trying to get the tying goal because they scored a goal in the third period. They went down 2-0. Then it was 2-1, trying to get that one last goal. They only scored on the power play. So they pretty much held Florida to 2 goals, obviously minus empty netters, which you don't really hold against your team when they happen. So, yeah, just not the result you wanted, but still a competitive game against a team that's got 25 wins. That aren't they the reigning Stanley Cup champions, if I'm not mistaken, or were in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yeah, they were the Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah.
And they're, one of the better teams so far in the NHL season. So we're seeing some good things out of the Utah Hockey Club. They actually just recalled Connor Ingram, who is, I believe, kind of on a rehab assignment with the minor league team. So should be getting him back. You know, they've been without their top goalkeeper, at least the top goalkeeper they had coming into the season. Still obviously waiting on some players to maybe come back from injury that they lost earlier in the season. Of course, some of those guys were expected to be out like 4 or 5 months. So you may or may not get them back at all before, you know, the playoffs begin. At that point, maybe too late, because the hockey club's kind of on the edge of making the playoffs. They're fighting to be in one of those playoff spots. And I guess just kind of my thoughts were like, hey, you know, we're basically halfway through the season. They've played 40 games, so technically halfway point is after the next game because they play 82 games. So they've just about reached the halfway point. Are you kind of satisfied with what you've seen so far? It's a team that's 17, 16, and 7. They have a winning record, or at least, you know, winning aside from overtime losses. You include those 7 overtime losses, then they're 17 and 23. So I don't think it's a bad start. Maybe not what we were hoping for, because I was hoping this team could be somewhat comfortably in the playoffs. Like, I wasn't expecting them to be one of the top seeds in the conference. That was not going to happen. They're too young. That's just not where they're going to be right away. I was hoping that they could kind of be a playoff team, not be fighting too hard for like one of the last spots to get in. So I think they're kind of slightly below what I was hoping, but I don't know if I can say that they've really been way below expectations. They're a decent team. They can compete with some of the better, but they're not going to win a lot of those games, and they're going to lose a few games that you really didn't want them to. That's happened several times this year. So it feels like I don't know if I'd give a midterm grade to the Utah Hockey Club, but I don't know, C+, B-. Feel like where there's a positive side to it, but you can't get too positive because we've seen a lot that's not been right with the hockey club.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think there was early season, a lot of excitement. This is actually happening. The NHL in Utah, national broadcasts in Salt Lake, and highlighting what's going on here. We knew that this was a franchise that struggled a little bit in Arizona, but they were making some inroads with their youth. Then they go out and make a trade to get a solid veteran to join with them. And there was some hope that this hockey team would probably have a better shot of making the playoffs than the NBA team would be. But right now, it's looking like neither one's going to be making the playoffs. Clearly, the Jazz won't, and it's starting to look a little bit more definitive that the Utah Hockey Club likely isn't going to be able to reach the playoffs. I'll be honest, for me, there was a lot of excitement early on. As the season has gone on, I found myself, not intentionally, but just kind of forgetting that they have games and forgetting to check in. I'm not used to checking in and watching hockey all the time. And early on in the season, I was trying to learn the team, learn the players and the nuance of the sport. But we had the college football was finishing. We had college basketball starting up. NBA was going on, the NFL still. And so there's been other things that have been competing for my time and my attention. And the Utah Hockey Club still hasn't really captured a lot of my attention. It did earlier on, but my interest is still somewhat there, but I don't really seek them out lately in the last month like I did earlier on in the season when it was fresh and new and something exciting.
And I think that's where they're really going to require a great season to be able to pull that off. Because, I mean, you remember a few years back where you had that run where the Jazz were like one of the top seed in the West, and that really like during that time, everyone was a Jazz fan. Everyone was wearing Jazz gear. Everyone was talking about them. Everyone was watching every game. Euphoric after every win. Disappointed after every what was a relatively small number of wins, or excuse me, small number of losses. there were some disappointments, but it was absolutely massive. It was the talk of the town, talk of the state. And you kind of need that out of the hockey club, where it kind of was that when they started out like 3-0, 4-0, or however many wins they won to start the year. Like, plus there was the novelty of the hockey club. But that excitement did kind of die down, kind of like you're talking about, where people aren't, it's not, must see TV for a lot of the state once the novelty is worn off and the team has turned out to be a little mediocre because they're sitting 11th in the Western Conference. So,
well, and it's also kind of hard to find, to be honest. I mean, K-Jazz TV, we know it's synonymous for the Utah Jazz, and they've been doing that for quite a while. And the other one with the hockey, it's like, that's not a channel I normally find on my dial. Also, it's not like I have to figure out, can I find this on Fubo, or do I have to go to YouTube TV to find this channel? Because I can never remember which one.
Yeah. I also bought an antenna to try and get it, but we can't get it to work. So,
oh no.
And
so it's had some limitations as it's launched. And maybe when they finally settle on a name, that'll be an opportunity to re-inject some excitement. But a name, a logo, a color scheme, that'll only take you so far. I mean, eventually it's still got to be wins and losses.
Yeah, people want to see wins and losses. Like they like to have the sweaters look cool and to have the good color scheme. But they want to see the team win. And this team is been up and down. Right now they've won like one game in their last 7 outings, including a couple of games that they blew leads in the third period, ended up losing. I remember that Anaheim game. They lost that one after leading like 4-1 at the start of the third or something like that. And, they've got that win over the Calgary Flames. That's their only win since, December 20th. We're going back a ways. They still haven't won in 2025. Or, no, wait, they did win. Excuse me. They won on January 2nd. So they have won in 2025. Excuse me. But, yeah, it's just they need to be able to get some wins. They do have a really long homestand that just started with this game against Florida. So stack up a few wins. I think that'll definitely help. But so far, I think for the hockey club there, again, I think it's overall positive. This team isn't drastically underperforming based on what they really should have been doing. And you factor in injuries. If you don't suffer some of those injuries, I think this team probably has, 4 or 5 more points maybe. Maybe not that, maybe 2 or 3 more points. But they'd be a lot closer to the playoffs. They'd be maybe a bit more of a contender to be in the postseason. But again, there's good and there's bad. And this club coming to Utah was always one that was kind of directed toward the future. They were just further along the rebuild than the Jazz were, but they're still in that rebuild. And so I think in the next 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to see hockey take over. We'll see if the Jazz can rebuild what they were, but I think you're going to see hockey taking a big chunk out of the sports landscape in a good way. Like, it's not like they're stealing from the Jazz or RSL, but they're going to take a chunk of our attention once they finally get this rebuild off the ground.
Yeah, and this really could have been a real opportune season for them. Granted, they're coming in out of nowhere, and folks around here in the state of Utah are still trying to. The larger audience is trying to learn hockey and the NHL, because there's some hockey diehards who were very excited for the move, and they were already firmly implanted and getting excited for this franchise. But this was a year in where the Jazz are not winning games, where this hockey team could have come in and captured a lot of attention and stolen some market share from the Utah Jazz. And maybe they've taken some, but it just doesn't feel to me like they've taken very much. Not as much as perhaps they could have if they had a little bit better record going on.
Well, and I've talked to guys in the media who they talk about how much they're investing in like beat writers and things like that for hockey. They're barely putting in any investment. Like, the media isn't really investing itself. Like, I'm like, we've not invested. We've tried to talk about the hockey club. We're still kind of new to it, so we're not good at it, but there's not as much investment that's being put into it by some of the media. And so the fans are kind of starved for, to have it kind of put in front of them when they're looking at their news sources. So, and again, the fact that the hockey club isn't doing well, the fact that they're mediocre, that's kind of playing into that. It's justifying a lack of media coverage at times.
Yeah. But getting one win of your last 7, that doesn't help either.
Yeah, it doesn't help. They'd been doing pretty good because they won a bunch of games out of 5 or 6 or 7 outings, but then they flipped it around and did the exact opposite.
Yeah, kind of real whimper to end of the year and start the new. So they do play again on Friday, as you said, a long homestand. They'll be in Salt Lake until through January 20th. So the next couple of home games will be San Jose on Friday, the New York Islanders on Saturday, Montreal on Tuesday, the Rangers on Thursday, St. Louis the following Saturday, and then on Monday the 20th, it'll be Winnipeg before they hit the road again. So a long stretch of home games here for fans to try to get down there and watch some of these games in person if they can.
Yeah, and obviously a great chance for hockey club to just kind of reset your young team. You were just on a 4-game road trip where you took some lumps. So go out there, be in front of your home fans, rest and reset, get your New Year's resolutions in place because you didn't do that clearly in the first few games.
Well, when you have long home stretches like this, you get more time on your own ice and your own practice ice to work on those finer details because you're not like, okay, a little bit of time here to prep, and then we got to get on the plane, and then we got to get on a bus, and then we got to, go to this place and go to that place. You've got more time to be in your own setting and to work on those finer details.
It's the equivalent of a walkthrough in hockey. They do a skate through.
Yeah, it's a skate.
Practice skate.
Pre-game skate.
Something like that.
435-339-0321. How would you judge the midway point, how things are going so far for the Utah Hockey Club? Is your interest waned? Has it increased? Are there certain things that are exciting and interesting that maybe we're not seeing that we should be and we should be highlighting? Let us know. 435-339-0321 here on the Full Court Press.
Now here's a concept. You earmark 1/3 of your profits to go back into the community, to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Anthony Wagner, and I'd like to share with you what I know about Dex, the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Join us in creating the brightest image for tomorrow. Contact us at deximaging.com.
Need a reliable partner for your medical needs? Look no further than Triton Medical and Transportation. We offer top quality medical soft goods right here in your community. From incontinence supplies and oxygen needs to medical transportation. Whatever you need to stay comfortable and healthy, we've got you covered. Trust Triton Medical and Transportation, caring for our community with every step, every mile. Call us today at 435-557-6687 or visit us online at mytritonsupply.com. Triton Medical and Transportation, because your health matters.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. A few years ago, I saw this sign hanging in a gas station. It said price, quality, service. Pick 2 out of the 3. Now, it's funny, and I did laugh, but at My Mattress, we don't even want to do business unless we can do all 3. Price, quality, and service. We have a 90-day sleep guarantee, 90-day price guarantee, and we will answer the phone if you have a warranty concern. At My Mattress, we deliver, we have financing, we strive to be price, quality, and service every day. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally? Only at My Mattress.
It's never too cold or wet to get rid of that old vehicle. Now is the time to earn extra cash for the holidays by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles, paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204. That's 787-1204 today. See store for details.
Following the local teams, it's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Your locally owned Preston of Providence Napa Auto Parts supplies parts to over a dozen different local Napa Auto Care Centers who have ASE certified mechanics. Places like Randy's Service Center in Richmond, Bear Auto Repair in Richmond, and Brent Allen Automotive in Logan. For anything from oil changes to major repair, take your vehicle to one of those Napa Auto Care Centers. So, you know what? I can always appreciate trying to come up with something new, something different, something that will catch people's attention. And one of those things is a Tiger Woods-backed golf competition indoors using simulation, well, part simulation, but also legitimate, like, things you have to do on a green.
Like an indoor green?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this caught my eye because, like, I was browsing through trying to find topics for today's show, and I just kind of stumbled on is an ESPN article about the viewership numbers for the first day or weekend or whatever of this TGL league. It took me forever to figure out what the heck TGL stood for.
I was going to ask you, what does TGL mean?
It's like, well, it's the
Top Golf League?
The T is for like TMRW or something like that. It's an organization. TMRW Sports. I don't know if that's supposed to be a shortening of tomorrow, but it's literally TMRW Golf or Sports. And so it's the TMRW Golf League, or TGL. And I don't know why literally nobody in any article I looked up would actually tell me what it stood for, but I finally figured it out. Somebody finally said it. But yeah, apparently dang near 1 million people watched this indoor golf league. And I say this as somebody who has attended like half a dozen golf events, including a couple of major events. I've been to the PGA Championships and the U.S. Open. Watching on TV an indoor golf league just sounds like the most degenerate thing you can do. Like, because the reason you watch golf, I mean, one is to see guys hit really cool golf shots. You know, in the same way that you watch basketball, like, you can't do what they do. And it's the same thing with golf. Or especially when you go watch, I can't imagine attending this indoor golf thing in person, because the only reason to like go to a golf event is so you can see the course.
Right. You go to see the course, and you go to see how can they get around this situation. Yeah. How will they approach this bunker or this hazard? How will they get around this situation on the course? That's part of the appeal of watching golf.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing to do. You can sit, you can just kind of sit around, stand at one hole, be there for like, 20, 30 minutes, watch a few groups come through, camp around a really challenging part of a hole, or you camp out at the green, and then you get to watch how do they handle the green. If they're short and they're a bunker, the putting's not super interesting to watch, but watching them get up and down from, 50, 100 yards can be interesting. And I don't know. I just don't feel like that. Like, there is something with indoor golf. Like, it's not like it's completely, divorced from golf itself, because it's just a simulation. But I don't know, if I want to watch simulated golf, I'll just go play the golf video games that I own.
Well, it is a little bit, I mean, how they blended it, and I'll be honest, I didn't watch it, but I did watch highlights, and I'm not sure I fully understand everything that was happening, because I didn't watch it, so I don't know all the rules. But there's a part of it where they approach a tee, and they're hitting it like you would be in any indoor golf simulation. You're hitting it onto a screen, basically a canvas, and there's cameras watching how you hit the ball, and then projecting how that ball would fly through the air on the course. And they'll tell you how many yards you hit it and all this other stuff. But then they move to like a literal kind of green. It has slope. It's got bunkers on it. But then they could like throw flags at each other, and they could trash talk each other. And there's a group of like, it's a team, right? So there's like 3 guys on each team, 3 or 4 guys. So, I mean, there's a little bit different element that way where people are mic'd up. And so it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Except again, the problem is with the green, like that's, at least, like I said, the putting is the most boring part of watching golf. Like, watching them line up a putt is boring, partly because when you're a spectator, you can't actually see the ups and downs of the greens. You can't read a putt from wherever you're spectating from. So that's the most boring part to actually see live, and that's the only part they actually get to see watching an indoor league. Like, mind you, the approach shots from around the green can be really interesting. So at least you got that. Hitting from around the green or out of bunkers, that's interesting, watching them do that, because it's amazing watching them be able to get it that close. If I get it out of a bunker and on the green, I consider that a win.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just feel like this indoor golf, as far as it being a spectator sport, like, I'm not going to question the legitimacy of it as golf, because it's a simulator, and the simulators are fantastic enough that they're basically playing real golf. It's just more virtual. But it is a spectator sport. I just don't get the appeal.
You can only have so many greens. Like, it wasn't that big of an indoor space. So were they always going to the same green?
Yeah, that'd be incredibly boring. Because you got to see all different kinds of greens. You got to see the funkier shaped ones that have a crazy hill on one side. Ones that are it's ones that's just an island that you got to be able to hit on.
Water everywhere. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just it's weird as an indoor sport.
Well, we'll see if it has legs. I think people tuning in as an oddity, but we'll see if it will last for much longer. Stick around, a lot more to discuss next hour here on the Full Court Press.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. At 15-2, the Lions have the roster and coaching staff to become a dangerous contender in the postseason. But after a win over the Vikings last night, Detroit's chances at running the table in the NFC may have just taken an even more significant jump in the right direction. Sunday night's win gives the Lions the NFC's number 1 seed. Throughout NFL history, teams that have secured a top 2 seed have won 52% of all conference title games. But Detroit's newfound advantage goes way beyond history. The Lions are coming into the playoffs as maybe the most banged-up team in football. The team is missing impact players like Aiden Hutchinson and David Montgomery. Next week's bye week will give that team not only an extra week to prepare, but an extra week to heal. And those injury concerns are large. After a 15-win season, that could spell trouble for teams looking to make a run in the NFC. If they run in to the Detroit Lions. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.